Hi guys, welcome back. So yes, here we go again, I'm afraid. We're talking tackle height, but it's such a big issue. So many great comments. I want to do one last video on it. There's another big point I want to make. We've got the new law, of course, coming in for next season. The RFU are saying in England, for community rugby, i.e. below professional rugby, you can now only tackle from the base of the sternum down. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is what you're getting rid of is potentially a foot of safe tackle area from below the neck to the base of the sternum. Yeah, it's going to be sore if you get tackled hard by Manu Tuolangi or someone, but it's not necessarily a particularly dangerous area. So why are they doing it? I mean, if you're forcing people to tackle lower, you're maybe forcing them down to more dangerous areas, the knees, the boots. You're more likely to get concussed than if you are to tackle the rib cage. That's one point to talk about. So really, what are the RFU trying to achieve? Now, I've got some pictures coming up of head-on-head, arms round neck tackles. This is the sort of thing the RFU are trying to get rid of or reduce. And yeah, sure, that is a noble cause, but is it going to do it? And are they asking the wrong question? Now, firstly, I'm actually going to take the professional game as my point of reference. It's the most influential area, but I know the law's not going to apply to that. Why? Well, it's basically because they can't really touch the professional game. I go into that in my last video. The RFU states it's because more head injuries occur in the community game. Well, yeah, of course they do, because there's hundreds of thousands or 100,000 plus more players in the community game than in the professional game per game, which is the most dangerous to play in. Well, I'd be amazed if it wasn't the professional game. So I think that's a bit of a cop-out, really. Lies, damn lies and statistics and all of that. But let's ignore that absurdity, and we're just going to talk about the game in general. Now, the first step was for the RFU and World Rugby to get really strict on the referees and say, you need to dish out these red cards for high tackles, even if it's maybe a rugby incident or someone didn't mean to. It's a red card. And they thought that might work, but it hasn't. So in order to force players to want to dip low, what they've done now, or the RFU have done now, is taken around a foot of safe tackle area out. Now, when you put it in those contradictory terms, it seems a bit weird. This picture here of Courtney Lawes with an amazing tackle, shall we say, would now be illegal. Sure, Bassero's going to be sore in the morning, but it's a perfectly legal and safe tackle. We're not going to go more into how tackling lower might actually increase a tackler's concussion rate from contact with hard areas of the body like hips, knees and boots. That's for another time, so we'll leave that one alone for now. Anyway, I think the issue is the wording of the question. Why don't players want to go low in the tackle, even though they know they're at risk of red cards? So here's the kicker. For most rugby, it's got very little to do with the player. Let's say Steve Borthwick, the England coach, tells his players he wants every tackle to be in a certain area. Let's say, for argument's sake, below the waist. What's going to happen? Easy. Every player's going to try their damnedest to tackle there. Why? Because they're good players, they're professional players, they want to do what's right, they want to please the coach, and they want to stay in the team. Now, of course, this effect is going to be lesser the lower level you go, but even a half-decent local team is going to try damn well to tackle the way the coach has asked them to, because they want to stay in the team as well. So why are we getting these head-on-head contacts? Why are we still getting these high tackles? It's because players are being coached to tackle high. I'll say that again. Players are being told to tackle this way because it's effective. They're being told to stay on their feet. They're being told to be upright in the tackle situation because they know they can then jackal because they're on their feet. They can counter-arc. They can make another tackle. They're much more effective staying on their feet. Sure, the low tackle is being coached as well. There's a variety of tackles you can use for the situation, but that staying on your feet, upright tackle is definitely being coached. Andy Good in his podcast did go into how he was told to stay on his feet in the tackle because it makes him more effective, and that was a while ago. Players are 100% being told to do this. The evidence is on the pitch. They wouldn't just decide to do it off their own back. So it prevents offloads, it dislodges the ball, all those other effects. It's super, super effective. That's why players do it, because the coaches tell them to do it. And the power of these benefits is still more than the possibility of yellow and red cards. So that's why they're still doing it. Unless they start sending everybody off, they're just not going to change it because it's so powerful. So the answer is fairly simple, although it's going to be hard to implement, of course. You've got to ban coaches coaching the stay on your feet upright tackle. And the evidence is in the game as well. If loads of players are doing this technique, especially at the higher level, it's because they're being told to do it. And they've just got to cut it out. To be fair, the part of the new law from the RFU saying ball carriers shouldn't significantly dip is also helpful, so keep that one in. But you've got to stop coaches coaching this stay on your feet tackle, otherwise it's just going to keep on happening. But another thing I think needs to come back in, for the game of rugby, you're going to get rugby incidents. Incidents where you have head-on-head contact and no one really meant to do it. It was just an accident. I think you need discretion to have lower sanctions in that case, because at the moment the discretion is taken out of referees' hands. And I think actually in rugby you need it, because there's so many weird things that can happen. So just backtracking again. So where did this upright tackle come from? Well, it was largely introduced by coaches and ideas coming from rugby league. Now, I'm not bagging rugby league, it's a fine game, but that's what happens. The rugby union is a young game, it's a young professional game, and they look for ideas from elsewhere. They grab them, they run with them, and none of the authorities are strong enough to say, well, hang on, that looks like a bad idea. And it kind of gets out of hand. So many of these new techniques have come through rugby league or come through other ideas. For example, latching on, double rolling, lifters in front of the catchers in mauls, which essentially are a little bit of cheating, but they've been allowed to carry on, and authorities are late trying to stamp them out, and it's already gone too far, especially when the game's growing, money's coming in. You know, the authorities probably don't want to stamp down on them too hard, but now they're realising they need to. So because the RFU are late to the party in recognising this, what they're doing is punishing all amateur players, but we'll still continue to see the trend in the pro game. So it's a really weird situation where the actual issue is we're going to still see these high tackles on TV, but the amateur players are essentially being punished because of what's happening in the pro game and what's happened in coaching over the years. Anyway, rant over. If you think I'm onto something, feel free to share this video, maybe with the RFU, who knows. But let's finish on a positive. It turns out it looks like this sternum and below tackle is part of a global trial. If the data says there's no improvement in head injuries, it will probably go away. If the feedback from the grassroots is so negative, it will probably go away. And I'm guessing that's what's going to happen. I can't actually see it staying. Let me know what you think. So finally, reducing head contact is absolutely a noble cause, the right cause. I'm 100% behind it. But in order to do this, the RFU needs to address the right question, the right problem, and ironically use their heads. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time.